taptasya tat pratividhir ya ihanjaseshtas taptasya tat pratividhir ya ihanjateshtas tavad vibhotanu brutham upekshithanam tavad vibhotanu brutham tvad upekshithanam balasya neha sharanam pitaro narsimha natasya chagadam udanvati majjato nauhu taptasya tat pratividhir ya ihanja chestas tavad vibhotanu brutam tvad upekshitanam balasya neham sharanam narsimha taptasya tat pratividir ya ihanja chestas tavad vibhotanu brutam tvad upekshitanam balasya neha sharanam pitaro narsimha nartasya chagadam udanvati majjato nauhu taptasya tat pratividir ya ihanjastas tavad vibhotanu brutam tvad upekshitanam balasya neha sharanam pitaro narsimha nartasya chagadam udanvati majjato nauhu taptasya tat pratividir ya ihanjaseshtas tavad vibhotanu brutam tvadupekshitanam balasya neha sharanam pitaro narsimha natasya chagadam udanvati majjato nauhu taptasya tat pratividir ya ihanja chestas tavad vibhotanu brutam tvadupekshitanam. Word to word translation. Balasya, of a little child. Na, not. Iha, in this world. Sharanam, shelter or protection. Pitarau, the father and mother. Nrsimha, O my Lord Nrsimhadeva. Na, neither. Arthasya, of a person suffering from some disease. Cha, also. Agadam, medicine. Udanvati, in the water of the ocean. Majjataha, of a person who is drowning. Nauhu, the boat. Taptasya, of a person suffering from a condition of material misery. Tat pratividihi, the counteraction invented for stopping the suffering of material existence. Yaha, that which. Iha, in this material world. Anjasa, very easily. Ishtaha, accepted as a remedy. Tavat, similarly. Vibho, O my Lord, O Supreme. Thanubrutam, of the living entities who have accepted material bodies. Tvat upekshitanam, who are neglected by you and not accepted by you. Translation and purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. My Lord Nrsimhadeva, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls, neglected or not cared for by you, cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient. And a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. Purport. Through parental care, through remedies for different kinds of disease, and through means of protection on the water, in the air, and on land, there is always an endeavor for relief from various kinds of suffering in the material world. But none of them are guaranteed measures for protection. They may be beneficial temporarily, but they afford no permanent benefit. Despite the presence of a father and mother, a child cannot be protected from accidental death, disease, and various other miseries. No one can help, including the parents. Ultimately, the shelter is the Lord, and one who takes shelter of the Lord is protected. This is guaranteed. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9.31, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Therefore, unless one is protected by the mercy of the Lord, no remedial measure can act effectively. One should consequently depend fully on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Although, as a matter of routine duty, one must of course accept other remedial measures. No one can protect one who is neglected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this material world, everyone is trying to counteract the onslaught of material nature, but everyone is ultimately fully controlled by material nature. Therefore, even though so-called philosophers and scientists try to surmount the onslaught of material nature, they have not been able to do so. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 13.9 that the real sufferings of the material world are four: Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. In the history of the world, no one has been successful in conquering these miseries imposed by material nature. Prakriteh kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Nature, Prakriti, is so strong that no one can overcome her stringent laws. So-called scientists, philosophers, religionists, and politicians should therefore conclude that they cannot offer facilities to the people in general. They should make vigorous propaganda to awaken the populace and raise them to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Our humble attempt to propagate the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world is the only remedy that can bring about a peaceful and happy life. We can never be happy without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Tvad upekshitanam. If we keep displeasing our Supreme Father, we shall never be happy within this material world, in either the upper or lower planetary systems. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gauravaktaranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My Lord Nrsimhadeva, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for by you cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient. And a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. So we see here, Prahlad Maharaj is continuing his prayers to Lord Nrsimhadeva. And is highlighting a very important point. That in this world, there is only one protection that is permanent and effective. Right? And that protection is the protection of the Supreme Lord. See, we can come up with all different kinds of means of protection, but invariably they will fail. You know? Recently, one of India's biggest industrialists, Cyrus Mistry, he died in a car accident just a few days back. He must be worth a few thousand crores for sure. I'm sure, you can imagine a person of that kind of means will have made different means of protecting themselves. He was in fact traveling in a very high-end Mercedes car with multiple airbags. It was one of those luxury Mercedes Benz. I think the S-Class or something they call it. It had side airbags, this airbag, so many different means of protection. Actually, it was very unfortunate how the accident even happened. There were 4 people in the car, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. Both the front people had put their seat belt, and both the back people had not put their seat belt. Typical in India, people think it's a privilege not to put your seat belt. And when I was recently there, first intuition that we put a seat belt. They said, "Oh, no need to put the seat belt in the back." I said, "Why, you want to kill me or what?" I want to put my seat belt. Why will I not put my seat belt? It seems in the front, if you don't put, for the driver, they can fine you or something. So people in the back think it's a privilege not to put their seat belt. So despite having a super luxury car, that would under normal circumstances, actually if he had put his seat belt, just like the two front people were saved, most likely he would have been saved. Right? But I'm sure they know this, they travel everywhere. I'm sure usually they'll put on something, both of them forgot to put. And it was not this thing, they were going in a very big highway, and the lady who was driving the car, this is not some driver also. Some friends of theirs. And she's a big gynecologist, some very big doctor. And she just lost control just for a second. And the car was going at a good speed. You can imagine a big car. Just touched the divider. I'm at that speed. You hit the divider at full speed. He was killed instantly. So, we can make all kinds of arrangements. But those arrangements are always going to be temporary. They'll protect you for some time, in some circumstances, in some situations. Recently, I was looking at a video the devotees had made of the yatra in Ukraine. If you go search Krishna consciousness in Ukraine, just 2 years back they had made this video. Very nicely made video. They show one city, I think it's called Donbass or Donbass, right? So it's a very nice city on the bank of a nice river. And you can see in the video, it is lush green. They show the promenade, right? This thing, they have a very nice promenade and nice buildings, and they show the downtown. It's quite opulent, to be honest. Like the old European cities, the downtown on this thing. And people living over there, especially the well-to-do people, would have lived a life of quite a good luxury, right? Everything is taken care of. They have, they have access to wealth. They have, that gives them access to all kinds of facilities. People there to serve them, especially in an Eastern European country. Labor costs are a little cheaper. Right? I'm sure they would have had servants to take care of things and all that. And suddenly, one day, no announcement, no this thing, your neighboring brick brother, decides to invade you. And overnight, everything that was meant like, oh, I have this much wealth. All of us do this calculation, right? There is one ad of this Fidelity Investments, right? They'll give people a tape, yellow colored tape, right? And then the tape keeps unwinding, and they keep showing your age, right? And it is meant to show you when your 401k will run out. And so, in that ad, it's a little funny to see some people run out at 65, 70, some people go still 90, this thing like that. So like that, all of us have plans. We are very meticulously, right from our young age, we have been putting money into our 401k and some properties. And parents might have, left some ancestral property, right? We calculate, how much is it worth right now? And if it is, some sites and all in India, you'll go put a compound around it, make sure nobody, takes over. And then you'll make arrangement for somebody to visit on a regular basis to make sure, everything is okay. All these plans you will make. Kala is so powerful that in one flash of a second, everything that you think about can just be finished. And it is not that it has not happened. Nations have come and gone. Now, if you think about where America is today, America is even now considered the most opulent nation in the world, right? If you have an American permanent resident card or a citizenship, you said, oh, you're American citizen. Rome was very similarly like this. If you go back 2000 years in 300 AD, Rome was the pinnacle of civilization. All the best things all over the world would be available in Rome. And then within a short time, the Roman Empire was completely destroyed. It was attacked by so many different forces, the Persians and the Mongols. They just devastated Rome. They had to flee Rome, and then they went to Constantinople to establish whatever is remaining of Rome. Even there, the Muslims invaded. And that was also destroyed. Right? So what is Prabhupada saying over here? See, that is very, very important. Then what is the solution? Okay, we all understand that our material problems, our material solutions are not going to be permanent. Right? So, in this verse, there is a little bit secret given here. How can we are saying that the Lord's protection is a permanent protection. Right? There is a little secret in the translation of this verse. Right? How can you, in what circumstances could you lose that protection? Can somebody reflect on? Tad upekshitanam. Right? What does it say? Tvat upekshitanam. Upekshita means neglected. Who are neglected by you are not accepted by you. Right? Now, what does Prabhupada say in the purport? How is it that we can be neglected by the Lord? Anybody remembers? Very end of the purport it comes. I'll read. We can never be happy without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Tvat upekshitanam. If we keep displeasing our Supreme Father, we shall never be happy within this material world, in either the upper or lower planetary systems. So, we can lose the protection of the Lord if we displease the Lord. Then one has to reflect on this and say, oh, how do you displease somebody? See, this is where you should think about this in a little different way. The Supreme Lord is our Father. He is our caring, loving, affectionate Father. How do you displease your loving, caring, affectionate Father? Let's hear some examples. Not following Father's instructions. Okay. In what sense though? What kind of instruction will the Father give that you don't follow? I want you to dig a little deeper. That's all theoretical answer. Yes, we should follow spiritual master instruction. So, just think of it in a practical sense, very practical sense. Think of it like there's a father and there's a child. Why will the father be displeased with the child? Why will father say, don't eat ice cream? Father doesn't like the child, is it? Ice cream is good, no? Why will father say, don't eat ice cream? Huh? Now let's take the ice cream example. Just finish the because nobody should think that if ice cream. See, father will say, eat your dinner or lunch, then you can have ice cream. Eat your vegetables, eat your chapati, eat your rice, then you can have ice cream. No, the child will say, no, I will eat only ice cream. Should remember this. Problem is not eating the ice cream. The problem is eating only ice cream. Because the father is concerned about the health of the child. It's not that the father is going to be, you eat ice cream, you think, like, just because let's say our children eat ice cream, what do we care? How much you want to eat? If it's good for you, we can only ice cream will give you. Right? What difference does it make for us whether we give ice cream or we give rice or sabji? What difference will it make for us? Will it make any difference? Wouldn't any of us be happy to give them as much ice cream as they want if ice cream was good for them? Right? So you are saying something. Beyond the boundaries. What else? Like, what is usually a father upset with the child, or how do you displease the child? What kind of misbehave? To whom? So in this example, they were causing harm to themselves by eating, these kind of things. What else? You said harm to property. You may damage something, you may throw a ball at the window and break the glass or something. Right? Why? Because if the glass is broken, you are the one who's going to suffer if there is, if you're exposed to the elements and, money is being wasted. Right? But more important than that, what is it usually? Practical things in your houses. What is it? Huh? Takes him away from father. Yes. What else? What a practical thing that happen in your houses displeases the father. Huh? Telling lies. And also, because you see, most of us have only one kid. Some people have only two kids. When there's a two-kid thing, don't they fight with each other? Right? If especially if a grown-up child hurts a younger child, younger brother or younger sister, right? Doesn't the parents get very angry? When you misuse the power and resources that are given to you. Actually, that's why we always keep giving the example. If you said, oh, you like diamonds, Lord will give you a planet made of only diamonds. As much of diamonds as you want. You can put one on every finger and every this thing. You can just bedeck yourself with diamonds. Here, take as much as you want. There's no limit. There is no limit to the opulence of the Lord. It's only in the material world that this concept of there's some limitation, there is only this much we have to share. All these things are just an alien concept. For Atma, for the Supreme Lord, there is no limitation at all. Right? I always keep giving the example. It is not that you want diamonds. You want diamonds that others don't have. Right? You want something else, from cycle you will come to something else. This. I was traveling through Uttar Pradesh, when I went to Vrindavan a few days back. It's a very populous state. 200 million people live in Uttar Pradesh, one city, one state. It's a very small state, by the way. You go look at the map. It's a very many of American one state will be bigger than the whole state of Uttar Pradesh. 200 million people live in that small place. We usually if you that's when I've seen the population is so dense, so many people, so many these things, and we're going through so many villages, and then I was just looking at people there and saying, so if you're born in that situation, in that village, in that place, how much limited access you will have to better your life, right? Because there's only these many IT jobs. There are only these many real estate owners. There are only these many, ways of making this thing. Most people have a hand-to-mouth existence, right? Again, the Supreme Lord can give you unlimited, but we have to understand how not to displease our Supreme Father. Now, let us understand this. What does it mean practically for us as devotees? The theoretical is all over. As devotees, how do we understand? See, in the purport, Prabhupada is quoting the Bhagavad Gita and saying, the real problem we all have. We think we have so many problems. Those are all not your problems. The real problem is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi in this material world. When somebody gets a Vyadhi, overnight, all your plan, this thing is gone. In this modern atmosphere, many of us will have our own friends, classmates, people like that. Suddenly get some serious form of cancer or something like that. So many things were going on. Suddenly overnight, the whole equation changes. Priorities change. Right? Janma, Mrityu, Jara and Vyadhi. Jara, old age. We take everything for granted. So this is a problem. The solution to the problem is obviously understanding we are the spirit soul and taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. See, all of us, at least we have the good fortune, we have come in touch with Srila Prabhupada, and we're very seriously, we're practicing, we're chanting, we're trying to do some devotional service. All this we're doing. In the process of doing that, one should be very, very careful not to displease our spiritual father. And every day morning we sing. Right? Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya aprasadat nagati kutopi. Now, to understand what pleases, as Mataji was saying, what pleases Narasimhadev, we have to please our spiritual master. Now, our spiritual master is also very, very merciful, very compassionate, very this thing. You'll see when you read Prabhupada's Leela Amrita, Prabhupada's pastimes, there were many situations, especially towards the late 70s, 75, 76, 77. Many of Prabhupada's initial disciples, some of them, they had difficulties, and they had to they gave up their spiritual practices. They went through some troubling times. There were many people whom he had given sannyas while Prabhupada was there, could not keep up their sannyasa vows. And Prabhupada would just say, it's okay. You tried, it did not work out, it's okay. Don't be but at least now, be a responsible grahastha and continue your devotional service. While Prabhupada was there, can you imagine in our Vedic understanding, in our society, sannyasi means Very big thing. But Prabhupada, during those days, he wanted to encourage everybody to very actively preach and all that. And they would come and request him. He would dissuade most people. Normally, he would dissuade them. But after consideration, he would give. But some of them could not. Prabhupada was so compassionate. He said, no problem. You become a Grostha again, it's okay, but practice Krishna consciousness. Don't give up Krishna consciousness. Nobody in the history of this thing has given a concession like that. I can't even imagine. If you saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how did he deal with this situation? Right? Chota Haridas, he did not, he just thought, just a thought in his mind. For that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not even see him again. So, we see that, pleasing the spiritual master is easy actually in that sense. We just have to practice and follow the instructions of the spiritual master. But displeasing the spiritual master, practical things, right? Usually, what are the, if you think about, practically for yourself, if you have to name, what are the top things that would displease the spiritual master? And which could practically, if you're not careful, we might do. What is it? What comes to mind? Not cooperating with other God brothers and God sisters. Right? Breaking regulative principles. Yeah, usually that is the easier one, at least the grossly. Subtly it's very, very difficult. But grossly at least it seems to be easy after some time. But what you're saying is very true. Prabhupada warned us so many times out of all the regulative principles, which is the most difficult one. There seems to be no... Which is the most difficult regulative principle? Regulative principles, 4 regulative principles. In fact, Prabhupada so many places says this. But that is not at the gross level. Gross level, most of us, if you're careful, we will not break. Subtle level, it's a different story. One has to be careful. So breaking regulative principles, yes, will displease. Again, we talked about the sannyas example. How much more breaking of regulative principle can you do? For a sannyasi to do. Even then, Prabhupada is okay. Chalo, okay, it's okay. At least now you become a proper grostha. Right? But, that's not the most difficult one. It is mainly our behavior with other Vaishnavas and other living entities also in this world. Especially when you have the power over something or somebody. One has to really keep introspecting oneself. When you are having wealth, when you are having power, when you are having beauty, when you are having all those 4 things, right? Knowledge. One has to be very, very careful how you exercise it and how you are very careful not to impact other living entities. Because each one of those things, you may think you're the smartest person in the world. And one of those diseases, nowadays, all these mental diseases are there, right? Dementia disorders, 5 different kinds. One of them hits you, you won't even remember who you are. Let alone, all this intelligence and all those things. You won't even know who you are. And, same thing with wealth. If you misuse your wealth, it can be just taken away in a flash. If you're very puffed up about, Shruta Shri, right? What else? Beauty, wealth. If you're very puffed up about these things and are very, harsh and not proper in your dealings, that is why we should be very, very careful. Whenever we have the opportunity, be nice to people, be loving, be kind in our dealings. And then the same kindness, same love, same compassion will come back to you when you are in need. And believe me, all of us will be in need sooner or later. So one should be very careful about not displeasing our Supreme Father. And it's very easy how to practice that. And with that, we can always have the protection of the Supreme Lord. And with the protection of the Supreme Lord, we can achieve perfection within this life itself. Okay, we'll stop here. See, that seems to be not ready yet. Let's see if anybody has any questions or comments. When we displease God, so say more, huh? Yeah. Yeah. So you might be saying, how does it karma impact devotees? Maybe, right? Like, see, when we think about this. Prabhupada quotes, Kaunteha pratijana dajanehi name bhakta pranashyati. Right? Krishna is telling Arjuna, you declare boldly, but my devotees will ever perish. But think about it, same Pandavas, their own children, just imagine 16-year-old children. If they are murdered in their sleep, how much of pain it should cause the parents. Can you imagine just for a second? All young, this thing. And not that, they were doing something crazy, they were taking drugs, or they were, irresponsibly driving and they had an accident. Nothing like that, right? These were, highly principled sons who were, fighting on behalf of, the family, and they were subjected to this, ignoble situation, being murdered in their sleep. And you'll ask the question, what is this? How is this Krishna's protection? How is Krishna protecting, and he's telling him only, declare boldly. You didn't, then the question should come up, you didn't even protect your Arjuna's son only was killed. What is this declaration? We should understand the Lord's protection of his devotees is an absolute platform. Despite, the Pandavas going through all these different trials and tribulations, Kunti Devi, after all this is over, she is praying, Vipadas Santu, let there be more and more this thing. Because whenever we had that, you are there always for us. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Now, in contrast to that, in the material world, when you are subjected to the laws of karma, that's why we say the example, either you want to deal with the front of the Lord, or do you want to deal with his backside? Friend of the Lord is very merciful, very kind. You might go through, not that you won't go through difficulties, but imagine, Draupadi was the most impacted out of all the Pandavas. Right? Why? Because she was the mother for all the 5 children. Right? All of them have been killed. And then Ashwatthama, who had, the murderer, is seized and brought in front of her and is asking, what should I do with him? And she has the presence of mind and the consciousness to say, see, I went through so much suffering, my children have died. Now think about it. If Ashwatthama is killed, Dronacharya's wife, she has already lost Dronacharya. Now she will lose her son also. How much more pain and suffering will it cause her? So don't do anything to him. Can you imagine? This is literally the next, few hours after your children have been killed. You're still grieving. You're still in that shock. In that situation, if you should have that consciousness to forgive somebody, imagine that opulence of that consciousness. That is Krishna's protection. Draupadi is feeling sadness, but she is still fully enjoying the protection of the Supreme Lord. And that opulence, that consciousness is the actual Lord's protection. Okay? So we should remember that the Lord's protection is very absolute. It is. Can you please maintain silence over here? If you want to talk, you can go outside the temple hall. Okay. I don't know if they are ready yet. Is the altar ready? ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की बोल प्रेमानंदे।